Hi folks, thanks for watching. I'm Sheila, a qualified counsellor, a comedian and a survivor of mental health. I know what it's like to be consumed by depression, to feel worthless, isolated and feel there is no hope. I believe that no one should have to feel like that. I was helped when I needed it and I wanted to do the same for others. Thank you for your kind donations to help me make this online show happen. For this show, I'll be exploring suicide. It is designed to be watched either from the start to the finish or by picking the topics that are helpful to you. The topics I'm covering are: number 1, why some people avoid the topic of suicide. Number 2, why is there a stigma? Number 3, suicidal thoughts and where do they come from? Number 4, why do people die by suicide? Number 5, what are the signs and symptoms of someone who is suicidal? Number 6, how can I help someone who has suicidal thoughts? Number 7, what can I do if I have suicidal thoughts? Number 8, how can I help someone in the process of suicide? Number 9, what if I'm suicidal and feel it is too late? Number 10, how did I help myself? Number 11, how can I help myself if I've lost someone by suicide? And number 12, what can we do now as a society to help? If you hear something you have experienced and you can offer what might be a different, helpful perspective, then please add your own comments, as it might be helpful to others. I shall be sharing some of my own experiences of what I know so far. I'm interested in what you know, so together we can help each other. So number 1, why do some people avoid the topic of suicide? Well, there's so many possible reasons, and 3 of which are fear, embarrassment, and feeling uncomfortable. So let's look at these each in turn. So number 1, fear. In some cases, we are afraid of saying the wrong thing for fear it might cause the person to feel worse. The irony of this is that by not saying anything can often create the very thing we're trying to avoid. By avoiding the topic could make the person feel worse, as if no one cares enough. Number 2 is embarrassment. We might be afraid of embarrassing the other person in crisis because we feel embarrassed ourselves. Ironically, it then becomes more about us feeling embarrassed. The reaction can make a person in crisis feel worse because it makes them feel like they should be embarrassed, and that they may interpret this that they should feel shame and take the blame for this. Hence, there is a stigma surrounding feeling suicidal or having suicidal thoughts. Number 3, feeling uncomfortable. As suicide tends not to be spoken about, it then continues to be a taboo and not well known. Oftentimes we feel uncomfortable talking about something we don't know a lot about. And we may ask ourselves, well, how am I supposed to know what to say? Sometimes when the topic of suicide is brought up, a person may go into a state of denial and pretend it's not happening. Denial protects us at some level from painful realities. However, it is not helpful for the person in crisis if it prevents them from getting help. So well done in choosing to watch this show. So why is there a stigma? Historically, in our society, we judged people who took their own lives. At one time in history, until the 1960s in fact, suicide was seen as a criminal act and that it brought shame to the family and to the person who died. How sad that there was a time when people were denied their own proper burial because they were struggling with their mental health. It was only in 1961 that the Suicide Act came about in the United Kingdom. It decriminalised the act of suicide in England and Wales so that those who failed in the attempt to kill themselves would no longer be prosecuted. In Ireland, it has only been since 1993 that the act of suicide was deemed no longer a crime. In some countries today, suicide is still seen as a crime. This really highlights such a lack of understanding and compassion for the people who were struggling enough and suffering enough to end their own lives. I heard someone say recently, you have the ones that say they're going to do it, but they don't do it. They're only looking for attention. Well, this again highlights the negative and unfounded judgments on another person's pain, which shows no empathy for their experience. Sometimes because of our own fear, we bury our heads in the sand or we can brush it under the carpet, but delaying a conversation or denying a problem exists doesn't make it go away. And in many cases, nobody benefits from this approach in the long run. As a society, we don't have to keep supporting these beliefs and behaviours. So the fact that you're watching this is making a difference already. Suicidal thoughts, and where do they come from? Will it surprise you to know that a lot of people in their lifetime will experience what's known as intrusive thoughts, which may be about harm to self or others, or in many cases about ending their life. So why is this? It's because life can be unpredictable. As I say in my mental health theatre shows, that shite happens. It's because we are not robots and we are affected by life's events, like when we lose people we love, like the loss of a relationship, a job, bad experiences, abuse, addiction, or events that are out of our control. All this can lead us into a downward spiral of negative thoughts, which can eventually lead to suicidal thoughts. Personally, the first time I had suicidal thoughts was when I was 7 years old. At that time, I was being physically and emotionally abused. I had a lack of emotional support and understanding. I had no self-worth and I really did not see the point of me being here. Most of all, internally, I was in emotional pain and I wanted it to stop. What I didn't know at that time and at the other times in my life is that a lot of the problem was because of outside factors. Being in the wrong environment, being around judgmental people, lack of emotional support and understanding. Sometimes families are only capable of offering conditional love, which means you are loved as long as you behave in the way that they want you to be. Now, we all have a natural need to have a sense of belonging. However, when we are not allowed to be who we are as individuals, this can cause an inner battle inside ourselves, which can lead to mental health conditions and suicidal thoughts. When we have a lack of understanding of what is going on inside us and why we feel this way, we blame ourselves. We think to ourselves, it must be me. And that feeds on the feelings of not feeling good enough to be lovable. It's not you. It's not your fault. In fact, most times, no one is to blame and no factor is to blame. Rather, a combination of factors such as environments, society, religion, culture. People use what they know passed down from generations and most times unaware of the damage their behaviours do. Although some scientists argue that mental illnesses may be genetically predisposed, when we are born, we're not born suicidal. Outside factors, experiences, or relationships are vital to how we feel about ourselves and the world around us. Number 4. Why do people die by suicide? Suicide is a very complex issue, and often there isn't one main reason that a person decides on this course of action. It can be the result of problems building up to the point where a person can see no other solution but for their life to end. Financial struggles and poverty can play a major part. The breakdown of relationships. Changes in society, like when a man cannot see where his place is. Behaviours associated with addiction and substance abuse, as for example alcohol and drug usage, can lead to irrational thinking and believing in only one outcome. Issues around sexual identity, like when a family tries to force their beliefs on how they want someone to be and feel. Only this week, I heard about a young man who took his own life because his father could not accept he was gay. His uncle took him to a faith healer with the belief that it would rid him of the evil inside him. Could you imagine what life was like for that guy? Forced religious beliefs and cultural behaviours can have a detrimental effect. Physical illness and poor quality of life can also be a big factor. Untreated depression is another reason for suicide, and depression is highly treatable. Suicide can be a way of making it stop, whatever it is, but it can also be an act of anger, revenge, or control. It's not just about despair. Abusive relationships where people can have constant feelings of worthlessness, can feel at the time that they will never change. Sometimes people are not equipped to deal with life's unexpected events, like redundancy. They may feel or they may have high expectations of themselves to solve their own problems. They feel ashamed to ask for support and may feel like a failure. Sometimes to cope, people can feel that they need to live as two people. The person they show on the outside and the person, how they really feel on the inside. Sometimes this can get too much and they can snap. They can shut down or they can explode. A suicidal person can feel like they are being a burden and believe that others would be better off without them. They can feel like they have no choice and only one way to stop the emotional pain. As you can hear, this is irrational thinking. At that point, the person is ill and in need of being kept safe. They need professional, non-judgmental support to get them through this difficult time, and then professional support to help them make sense of how and why they are feeling this way. Number 5. What are the signs and symptoms of someone who is suicidal? There are many and varied signs and symptoms. Someone who is overly depressed, loss of appetite, or someone who is overeating excessively. They may have become withdrawn and they may be isolating themselves. Someone who is saying they are suicidal, believe them. Lack of sleep, motivation, increased use of drugs or alcohol. Someone who might suddenly seem calm and settled after being irritated or depressed for a long time. They may be calm because they have made the decision to take their own life, and sometimes this could be a huge relief as the decision has been made. Self-harming could also be a sign of someone who is suicidal. Someone who has given away their important possessions. You can also find extra resources about this at the end of the show, so please feel free to have a look at that. Number 6. How can I help someone who has suicidal thoughts? Please get some professional help at the earliest opportunity for that person, and mention that because of the risk of harm to the person, you cannot keep confidentiality because you care too much about them. It really is important not to avoid the word suicide. Listen to them, talk to them, ask them about their suicidal thoughts. Ask them what you can do to help. Be aware of your own behaviours. Many people do want a chance to talk, but they feel they might be a burden to the people around them. If you have the behaviour where you don't have time to talk about it, or you dismiss emotions and feelings, this can make a person feel like they can't talk to you and that they are actually being a burden. You can let a person know that you are worried about them, as this shows them that you care. So you can literally say to them, I'm worried about you. Saying things like, I can't sleep worrying about you, will actually make a person feel worse because they're already overwhelmed. So please try not to make it about you. Make sure not to pile your stuff on top of them. Make sure not to say, you shouldn't feel that way. For them, this is real and it needs to be respected, valued and heard. If this is a difficult subject for you, then I encourage you to be open to find out about it. Again, well done in watching this. The more comfortable you are with the subject, the more comfortable they will feel. Ask them if they are comfortable to talk to you. If they don't want to talk to you, what you can do is not take the response personally. It could be that the person who is struggling sees you as a warrior and they don't want to make you feel worse. Ask them, is there someone else that they would like to speak to? And if they don't know the answer, just give them time. Let the person know that you respect their decision not to speak to you, and let them know that you are there for them if they ever change their mind. Again, remain calm. They are more likely to speak to you if they feel confident that you can handle hearing their thoughts. You can offer to sit with them if that's okay with them, or just be with them and appreciate what they want to do. If they do want to talk to you, then be silent. Allow them to talk when they are ready. Oftentimes people will try to make others talk because they themselves are uncomfortable with silences. If this is you, then I encourage you to learn how to be comfortable with silences through meditation, yoga or mindfulness. Remain calm. You can do this by breathing slowly and deeply. In through your nose, pause and out through your mouth, counting in for 3 and out for 5. Ground yourself. Be aware of the floor beneath your feet. Look at 5 things around you in the room and just name them. This is just bringing you into the moment. When they do want to speak to you, just listen. Take them seriously. If they tell you that they are suicidal, acknowledge what they have just said by saying it back to them in a non-judgmental way. So for example, just to make sure I'm hearing you, you're saying that you're suicidal. Can you say more about that? You can show compassion by imagining yourself in their shoes. By being empathic and showing compassion for the person will show them that you care. Often people want to talk, but they find it difficult. You can ask, is it okay if I ask you questions and you can choose if you want to answer them or not? If they agree, then try to ask open questions like, how long have you been feeling this way? Or, are you okay to tell me more about your suicidal thoughts? You can ask them questions about how did that make you feel. Keep the questions open, keep the conversation going as much as you can. Again, repeat back what they've said to you because this shows that you are listening, and ask questions if it feels appropriate. You can ask them, when you are having suicidal thoughts, are there things that help you feel better? Things like if they have a pet or having it around them, writing things down or having a good cry. Or you can offer them a hug and allow them to cry. Please be careful not to say, hush now, don't cry, as this makes it about you not being comfortable with them crying. Crying is really important as it helps the person to offload that built up emotion. You can ask them questions about support like, have you talked to anyone else about your suicidal thoughts? Or would you be open to talking to a counsellor? Or would you be willing to speak to the doctor to see what options there are? If they say yes, you could say, would you like me to go with you? If you say something that appears to cause more upset, don't panic. It is important that you look after yourself and talk to someone too, like a friend or a counsellor. If you are struggling with helping someone, you can always call the Samaritans or the Befrienders International. You might feel that you don't know how to help someone because you don't know what to tell them or how to solve their problems. I mean, sometimes it's easy to want to try and fix a person's problems or give them advice. However, sometimes people who think they have the answers to a problem are actually less helpful. It's not your responsibility. Try and let them make their own decisions in their own time. And you know what? It's okay to not know what to say. You can actually say, I'm not sure what to say or do or how to help, but I'm here with you and I care. On a practical level, if the person is suicidal, then think about the environment and how you can make it safer. Is there a gun or a rope in the house? Does the person know where it is? And can you put it in a safe place? Does the person have access to a lot of medication and can you monitor this? You can be mindful of any sharp objects in the house like knives, razor blades, and monitor them so they are out of harm's way. You can ask direct questions like, have you already planned how to end your life? And how are you going to do it? Ask them the details about it. Try and find out when and where they are planning to do it. If they are planning to do it that day, this will give you time to ring the police to intervene. Most times, if someone tells you when and where they're going to do it, it can mean that they want help. It can also be a big relief for the person to be able to talk about suicide. This really is important because so many people have said this. Sometimes I will use what's known as appropriate disclosure and I will say how I felt when I was suicidal. A lot of the time, because the person hasn't spoken about it, they can feel like they are the only one going through this. This again makes them feel isolated, alone and overwhelmed. They can feel trapped and scared of their own mind. They need understanding to know that they are not alone, that someone understands them. Share your experience if it's relevant and be mindful not to share so much that it makes it about you. Share enough so that the person doesn't feel so alone with their thoughts. Don't forget that every person is different, so what works for one will not always work for the other. Be open and honest that you are both learning what works. People who have felt suicidal often say what a huge relief it is to be able to talk about what they're experiencing. When someone starts talking, they've got a better chance of discovering other options to suicide. It is actually proven that by just being there and giving that space for the person to offload can reduce their suicidal feelings. It's a bit like the saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. Number 7. What can I do if I have suicidal thoughts? There's lots of things you can do. Try not to panic and take some deep breaths. Thoughts and emotions can be very consuming and overwhelming. So the main thing is to get these thoughts out and get these emotions out. You can talk to someone who is able to listen and hear what you are saying. You can speak to the Samaritans. You can also write your thoughts down on a piece of paper. Make sure not to judge yourself about what you're writing. Just go with it. Just go with it, because what you're doing here is you're just getting it out. You can keep a journal and take notice of the times you feel most consumed by suicidal thoughts compared to the times you feel less consumed. This will help you become more aware of the triggers. You can give yourself permission to cry. You can do this by connecting with a piece of music that triggers your sadness, or watching a film that helps you cry. You can go for a walk. Sometimes just change your environment can make a difference. You can get professional help and find counselling support. Now, counselling can be available through voluntary services and private services, online or face-to-face. Please know that there are different types of models of counselling. So if it didn't work for you in the past, then it may have been the wrong type of therapy for you. It might not have been a suitable therapist, or it might have been the wrong time. I encourage you to try different types of therapies to find the one that suits you. You can decide that enough is enough. That you don't have to just put up with these suicidal thoughts, and that you are worth more. Give yourself time and a chance to get better. Know that it doesn't always have to be like this. You can use affirmations, saying things, I'm doing my best, and that is good enough. When I mention affirmations, I use these. So this is affirmations called Power Talk Cards by Louise L. Hay. And I just want to share one or two with you, okay? Imagine you're saying this to yourself every day. Freedom is my divine right. I am free to think wonderful thoughts. I move beyond past limitations into freedom. I am now becoming all that I am created to be. I experience love wherever I go. Love is everywhere, and I am loving and lovable. Loving people fill my life, and I find myself easily expressing love to others. So it's saying, oh, and this one here, I deserve the best and I accept the best now. I am mentally and emotionally equipped to enjoy a prosperous and loving life. It is my birthright to deserve all good. Things like these affirmations, saying them over and over again, it can certainly be a factor towards helping you. Become aware of how you are speaking to yourself. Is it helpful? And decide to change it or learn how to change it. So like using the affirmations. Learn how to be compassionate with yourself. Treat yourself as your own best friend. Other things you can do is art, crafts, writing poetry or reading poems or singing. You can also offload frustration and anger by using an anger cushion. You can use a pillow or a punch bag, whatever it is accessible to you. Exercise is a great way to boost the chemical serotonin in your brain, which can help you feel better. So you can do some form of physical activity that you enjoy. You can go to the doctor, speak to him or her about your concerns. They may be able to refer you for counselling help, but they also can give you the option of medication. Remember, you always have choices. This list is only some of the things, and if you're watching this and you'd like to comment or give advice on other things you found helpful, then please add your comments, as it may help others too. Please see the resources as well at the end of the show, like M.H.S 111, local mental health crisis teams, and Paperus. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. Everyone is an individual, and what works for one may not work for another. It can take trial and error to find out what works for you. So now we're going to have a chat with Adrienne, who works for the Samaritans. Adrienne, thank you very much for coming on to this online show about suicide.
Thank you.
So you work for the Samaritans?
Yep, so I'm a volunteer for Samaritans.
Yeah.
I've been a volunteer for 5 years.
Okay.
I am a branch director for our local branch in the West Midlands. We've got about 70 volunteers in our branch.
Okay.
We have 202 branches throughout the UK.
Okay. And one of the things I was curious about is the Samaritans worldwide?
So no, we're not a worldwide organisation.
Okay.
Worldwide, people can email into us.
Okay.
And we pick up the emails.
Yeah.
But as for the telephone service and the face-to-face service, we're UK only. And there are other organisations which we can provide links for.
Yeah, absolutely. We were speaking about this earlier on, so we will be putting up links, telephone numbers for as much as we know what's available in different countries. So folks, as I mentioned before, that if you're watching this and you're from whatever country you're from and you know of what helpline or websites that are available for people to call if they are suicidal, then please can you put that in the comments. So the whole thing is just to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how come you became a Samaritan?
So 5 years ago, my children were quite a bit older and getting ready to leave the nest and busy doing their own thing. And I thought I got a bit of time to spare.
Yeah.
And I just saw an advert. So I'd been thinking about volunteering for quite a while, but didn't really know where to turn with that or what to do. And I just saw an advert in a local little free magazine saying we need volunteers. I thought, oh, I could probably help them. Okay. So I went along to an information evening to find out a bit more about the service.
And actually it's interesting because I've heard lots of people say to me that they'd like to become a Samaritan, but that they'd be too scared to become a Samaritan for fear that they would say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So for anybody that would think about becoming a Samaritan but would have those fears, what would you say to them?
So we do 10 weeks worth of training. So when you go along to information session or a selection session, it's quite a long process before you go anywhere near a telephone or get to talk to anybody that might be in suicidal distress. So the 10 weeks training is very intense. You are trained to deal with any situation because when that phone rings or when someone turns up to talk to us, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
And it's our duty of care to make sure our volunteers are prepared for that.
Okay, so the training is intense.
It is.
And, you made sure that you have enough of training before you even attempt to answer the phones.
And once you come through the first set of training, which is 10 weeks, you are then put with a mentor.
Oh, okay.
So you don't go straight onto the phones at that point either. You listen in to the types of calls that the mentor is taking.
Yeah.
And then probably about after the third session of being mentored, you then start taking calls with your mentor listening in just to help out if you need it. So it's what we do is a very sensitive role.
Yeah.
And we don't take everybody that applies to be a volunteer because it's not suitable for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's other roles in the branch that aren't listening roles that if it's not suitable, then there's other stuff that people can do to support the work.
Okay, thank you for that. That's interesting to know that. So when it does get to that point where you've had the training and you're taking these calls from people who are suicidal, how do you help them?
So the biggest thing we do is giving them time and space to just talk about how they really feel. And that's what a lot of people are missing in their lives. They can't say to their family and friends and loved ones, I'm feeling suicidal, because straight away family and friends want to solve the problem, want to say, don't be silly, pull yourself together. They react, they provide solutions. And sometimes people just need to talk about how they feel. So the biggest thing we do is give people that space. We may ask the odd question or two to try and clarify our understanding of what they're telling us. But the biggest thing we do is listen.
And that word react, when we were discussing before we've come on air now, you mentioned about how important it is not to react.
Yeah, absolutely. In our daily lives with our family and friends and our co-workers, we generally react because we want the best for them. As Samaritans, we're trained not to react. We're not there to solve this person's problem. We're there to give them a safe, non-judgmental place to say how they really feel. And our reaction is about us, it's not about them.
Okay.
And the call is all about them.
Wow, thanks, Adrian. That sounds really important. Really important.
It is.
As regards helpful questions, so as regards people watching this, and if let's say they come across that where they're with somebody and they disclose that they're suicidal, is there any questions that you can suggest that might be helpful for people to say?
Absolutely. So clarifying what the person has said to you. So if, they say, oh, I'm feeling like I just want to end it all. When you say you want to end it all, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Because that to me could mean one thing, to you could mean something else, and to our viewers it could mean something completely different. So clarifying what people say to you to make sure you understand how they feel, not what we think they feel.
Okay.
That's so important. And the other things, why do you think you're feeling like that?
Okay.
So always open-ended questions.
Yeah.
So and non-judgmental questions.
Yeah.
So what else is going on for you? What else do you need help with? What is it that's making you feel like this, do you think? Questions that they can respond to and say how they really feel and not feel judged.
Yeah. So if somebody was watching this now that is suicidal, what advice would you give to them?
I would give them the advice to talk to somebody.
Okay.
If they don't feel comfortable talking to Samaritans, to somebody they trust.
Yeah.
And to say how they really feel without that other person trying to solve it or getting too reactive. But Samaritans is always available to talk 24 hours a day. There'll always be there someone to listen. And what you'll get when you do call Samaritans is space to say how you really feel.
Yeah.
Often ask the question, do you feel suicidal? Some people get quite shocked at that question because, actually, no, I don't feel that bad. Or, yes, I do feel suicidal, but I don't want to do anything about it. I just want to say how I feel.
Yeah.
So, and that's so important because when you bottle it all up in your head and you feel you can't talk to those people around you, it plays on your mind more. Whereas just releasing those words and really thinking about what that means. So what Samaritans will also do to people is say, have you thought what it would be like to not be here anymore?
Okay.
So to really make people think about, and that's not trying to say, yes, go ahead and do it, or no, don't go and do it.
Okay.
We firmly believe it's always the person's choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever they decide is best for them, their way forward, that's up to them.
Yeah.
But what we will do is help you think about what your options are.
Yes, yeah, and absolutely, Adrian, that's a very good point because when you're in that moment and you're overwhelmed by thoughts, sometimes a person hasn't thought about, well, what happens if you do go?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's almost kind of helping them to really look at all the different factors. As you say, you're not trying to stop them.
No.
At the same time, you just ask them questions, you know. Like a friend of mine, Paul, I know he doesn't mind me sharing this, that he worked for the Samaritans, and he was saying that he would say things like that. It sounds like that your head, your thoughts are like a washing machine with lots of different items and clothes going around. What would it be like if we were just to take one thing out at a time?
Yeah, that's
just
brilliant.
Kind of unravel, almost like a ball of wool. And if we were to take one strand, what might that be? Let's just look at that. Let's just talk about that.
Yeah.
Because there is this thing about being really overwhelmed with your thoughts.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to be able to have time and space to get those thoughts out.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to use that myself if you don't mind. So
I don't mind at all.
please ask Paul, because I think that's a great way to say it. Because people do feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start with it all.
Yeah.
But if you can just unpick it one piece at a time.
One piece at a time. Absolutely.
That really helps.
Yeah. And that's what this show is all about. It's all about helping each other.
Yeah.
That's because, I have what I've been through, and then professionally, personally, then you have your experience as a Samaritan, and then people watching, you have your own life experiences, and the more we share, well then, I kind of see it as a big pot, and then we're all individuals, and we might decide, okay, that mightn't work for me, but actually I like that.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I'll take that.
And for me, it's really important that we get rid of the stigma around suicide.
I was going to ask you that. Why do you think people are so reluctant to talk about suicide?
If you think about the words committing suicide, we never use those words in Samaritans.
Okay.
We'll use the word suicide. We won't say the word committing suicide because that almost implies it's a sin or it's something that's illegal, which it did used to be illegal.
Yes, yeah.
And you know what? People feel suicidal and they're entitled to feel as they feel.
Yeah.
But taking that stigma away is really important.
Yes.
And giving people the time and space to say how they really feel,
Yeah.
as I've said before, is so important.
Yeah.
With no stigma.
Yes. And you mentioned about being non-judgmental.
Absolutely. So you can talk to us about anything at all that's
Yeah.
bothering you.
Yeah.
When people, I'll often ring up and say, oh, my problem's only really little, so I won't be on long. But actually, it's not little to them because they've called us, they've made the
Yeah.
effort, they've taken the brave step to talk to somebody about
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And what might be their little problem might be somebody else's big problem, and,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's never to underestimate the things that you're going through and not say they're little, because that underestimates it. If they're
Yeah.
causing you emotional distress,
Yeah.
they're important.
Yeah, wow. I hear just that lovely openness and
Yeah.
how you value people,
Yeah.
and rightly so, that
Yeah.
if they're talking about it, it's important.
And some of the subjects that we are trained to deal with and we do have to listen to, they may not be something we personally agree with,
Okay,
but that's part of the training. Again, we are
Yeah.
non-judgmental.
okay,
So we are looking for open-minded volunteers,
okay,
but there will still be things that trigger us as volunteers that we think,
Yeah.
actually, I really don't agree with that. But that's not our place to be
Yeah.
there. Our mission is less people die by suicide. And by giving them time and space to talk about whatever it is, anything
Yeah.
at all, there is no
Yeah.
subject that is taboo.
yeah, yeah. Wow, Adrian, I can see why people talk to you, and and when we were discussing this earlier on, you will let me know as well that if somebody goes through different periods of suicidal thoughts or intent, they can speak to you, but they won't necessarily get you the next time.
Absolutely. So you do build up
Yeah.
rapport with some people that you
Yeah,
talk to,
yeah.
and they'll say at the end of a call, oh, can I talk to you again next time?
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's not possible because my shifts change every week, and,
Yeah.
and most of the other volunteers are very similar.
Yes.
So to say we're going to be there at a certain time is just not practical.
Yeah.
But also, all volunteers are trained exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so what I say to people is, you probably won't get to talk to me,
Okay.
but all my fellow volunteers are trained exactly the same. And you don't need to start at the beginning. Start where you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you were saying that just because I think you mentioned that you hear that a lot.
Yes, we do.
When people say, "Oh, I don't know where to start."
Yeah, yeah. And just start where you feel comfortable. You don't have to start at the beginning. Start with the most recent thing that's made you feel distressed. Whatever that is, wherever you feel comfortable. And every volunteer is trained the same way to react and to respond in the way that just makes you feel comfortable to say whatever you need to say on that call. If people want us to get medical help for them,
Okay.
we can offer that.
Yeah.
They have to tell us where they are. We don't trace the calls.
Okay.
So they will have to give us their personal details so that we know to get these services to them. It's not a fast way for us to do it. It's quicker for people to get medical help themselves.
Okay.
So I'm based in the West Midlands.
Yeah.
I could be talking to a caller anywhere in the UK. So when I ring up the ambulance service, I get the West Midlands. Then they have to contact the correct ambulance service. So it can be quite a slow process.
Yeah.
So if it's urgent need, it's quicker for people to call themselves. But we're more than happy to get the medical help if that's what they want. It's about their choice.
Yeah. What do you think society or people don't understand about suicidal thoughts?
That people can feel extremely suicidal and can see that as their only way out.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's a temporary feeling.
Yeah.
But suicide is a permanent solution.
Yeah.
So we often help people to see, is this the permanent solution that you really want?
Okay.
Is there anything else that you think actually this could pass?
Yeah.
Because people do have thoughts that pass,
Yeah.
and it's helping them see, is this now something that's going to pass? Is this situation something that's going to pass?
Yeah.
And can I see light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah. Adrian, thank you so much for coming on the show, and amazing work that you do. So I hope that that's been of help, to yourselves watching. And again, folks, if there's anything that you can add to this, it's all about helping each other. It's like Adrian said, oh, can I use that? What Paul had said. It really is about helping each other. Just giving ourselves, whatever place you're in, just as many options.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of that suicide is the only option, because it isn't. There are other options. And you have people like Adrian who are at the end of a phone and genuinely care and just want to help you through this. So thanks again, Adrian.
It's my pleasure.
Number 8. How can I help someone in the process of suicide? First of all, remain calm. If you see someone and they haven't noticed you, you can call the police, ambulance, fire rescue, mental health crisis team, or both, depending on what is happening. So for example, if you see someone in the process of hanging themselves from a tree, a paramedic and a fire rescue may be needed. If you see someone jumping off a bridge, then the transport police may be needed due to the risk to the public. If you see someone has taken loads of pills, then an ambulance may be best. Also, a crisis team can section people if in the act, so it is important to explain the situation to get the best help at that time. If the person is in immediate danger and is seeing you, still try and call the police or relevant services if you can, to seek professional help first. This will give you the reassurance that help is coming. If you are safe and only if you feel okay to do so, then stay with the person. You can also call the Samaritans for help, or you can ask the Samaritans to call the person if the person is willing to speak to them. Know that you are doing your best, and that is good enough. Know that regardless of the outcome, you are not responsible for it. Take them seriously. Acknowledge what's happening. You can say something like, I can see that you are struggling. I'm going to stay here with you. Listen to them. You can let them know that you are not going to try and stop them, that you respect their decision. It is really important as people that their choice is respected. For most people who are intending suicide, they can feel they have no control over their life and themselves. So it's really important not to try and take that away, not to try and take away that sense of control or choice. It is important for them to have control over what they choose to do with their own life. So again, respect their decision. You can say something like, I can see that things are difficult for you. I'm just going to stay by your side. At that moment, the person doesn't know that over time it can get better. Ask them, or you can ask them, do they really want to die, or do they want the pain to end? Every situation will be different, as every individual is different. Show them you care by listening. If you know them, you can say something like, I don't want you to die because I love you, or because I care deeply for you. If they say it's really bad, you can ask, how bad is it? And give them space to talk. You could shift responsibility, so only if this feels appropriate. So for example, and again, if it feels right, if the person is about to jump into a river, you can say, if you jump into that river, I'm going to have to jump into, and I don't want to die. This was actually something that was used before that did save a life, but remember, every situation is going to be different. If it feels right and safe to do so, you can offer them a hug. Put your arms around them and hold them. Let them know that it's okay to cry. It's okay to let it out. Give them that permission to cry. You can say, I can't promise to fix everything, but if you let me help you today, I will carry on helping to try to get you through this. Number 9, what if I'm suicidal and I feel that it's too late? If you're watching this and are planning to die by suicide, I understand your pain. I know that you were not born suicidal, and that something has happened in your life, or a mixture of different things have happened in your life for you to get to this point. It doesn't have to be like this. I am testament to that. Things can get better. You can choose to end your life, or you can choose to live life differently. It can get better. Things can change. You don't have to keep up with trying and doing things that haven't been working for you. You don't have to keep trying the things that don't work. There are so many people and organisations out there that care and want to help you through this. It really does get better, and I'm testament to that. In my darkest hours, I never thought that I would be able to use my most negative suicidal experiences to help others. So you just never know what's around the corner. This will pass. It doesn't have to be like this. Call the Samaritans or the Befrienders worldwide. They care, and they will be there to get you through this. Hi folks. As part of doing the mental health show online about suicide, I felt it was really important to interview a man from a male perspective, especially when suicide affects so much more men than women. I've been really fortunate to be able to interview Sean earlier on in the week, and I'm sharing this interview as part of the show in the hope that it might be helpful for some of you watching. The interview is quite long, and initially I had intended to shorten it, but actually looking back on it, I feel that all of it's relevant. So please feel free to pick and choose whatever might be helpful for you. And again, I just really want to say a big thanks to Sean for being part of the show. Sean, thank you so much for being here today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Sheila.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah, you've mentioned before that you're happy to share some of your own personal story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe anybody who's come through the dark times of depression or any mental illness needs to share their story and to let the person who is on that journey but way far back know that there is hope, know that there is a chance. It's a long road and it's 2 steps forward, 4 steps back a lot of the time, but it will come. You will get there. You may not ever get better, but you'll learn to live with your illness, if you want to call it an illness. I know a lot of people have the black dog, and I do believe in that. You know, it can be there and you can train it, but sometimes it gets off the lead, and that's when things go wrong.
Yeah.
But most of the time at the minute, I'm doing really well.
Yeah, that's
really
great,
Yeah.
because you're sharing that story of hope.
Absolutely.
Would it be okay to speak a little bit about the dark times, the times?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mental health was, it would have been in the late 80s, early 90s that I first ended up in a acute ward. The first experience. I didn't realise anything was going wrong, but retrospectively, and what people have said, I'd not been looking after myself. I'd been going to work and not really being clean and just hiding in my house. I didn't realise, and then one night I again, retrospectively, my mum always said she broke down in tears when she looked at my phone and saw how many times I'd rang the Samaritans over the 3 or 4 months leading up to this. This was quite, depression doesn't happen just like that. You know, the people who say, oh, I'm a bit down, and that happens like that, but true depression, that comes very slowly. It comes on. You don't realise most of the time that you're actually getting depressed. And then if you've never been depressed, I think that's a message that I'd like to share to people who are struggling at the minute. You probably don't realise that you're depressed.
Okay.
But if you're feeling down all the time and nothing is making you feel happy, you're not enjoying the things you did last month or the month before, maybe just think, maybe I'll have to go and see somebody. Maybe see a doctor,
Sure.
GP, or talk to a friend or a family member.
Yes.
Because it is a very true thing that if you share, if you talk, I'm a great believer in talking. I think I could talk for England, and I think it's the right thing for everybody.
Yeah.
But if you share what's in your thoughts, the bad thoughts, it just makes you feel that bit better.
Yeah.
But again, so my going back to my story, I left my house, went onto a major road, and was just walking across the road, and I had every intention of trying to get knocked over and killed, or you know, I just couldn't see any other way. The police did come, and they took me to the local hospital. And again, this is all second-hand memories, but some of the things I remember, one of the biggest vivid things that I remember is that I was sat on a hospital bed, and I was just looking on the floor, and all I could see was dolphins swimming round my bed, and I felt actually at peace.
Yeah.
It's really, really strange, but then I decided that I needed to get out and kill myself, and that sounds quite, wow, he's just said kill myself. I think language is really important.
Yeah.
And it's important, language is really important to the people that you talk to as well.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with asking somebody, do you feel suicidal?
Yeah.
Obviously not in the office or in the pub, but in a nice quiet place, in a safe place. But there's nothing wrong with asking somebody. In fact, actually, it's probably the best question you can ask somebody at that really difficult time to start the conversation, because that person is going to think, well, I can actually tell them how my head's feeling. They're asking me something that I didn't think anybody would want to hear. So I truly believe language and the way that we talk to people is crucial in helping people share their stories, because you know that a problem shared is a problem half. It's very, very true,
Sean,
and it's not a flippant thing. It's not a thing that you think. But if somebody hears it right and you listen right, it's being empathy with somebody. You know the person is thinking, actually, I can share my story.
Yes.
And it only might be a little bit, but just that little bit, just that one question might be enough just to get that person to the next level of help they need. You know.
And Sean, did somebody ask you that question then?
No, I was in a again. I left the hospital without being discharged, and again went to try and kill myself, and the police took me to a place of safety, which was the acute ward.
Okay.
And to be perfectly honest, for the next 3 years, I was not on this planet.
Okay.
Okay. So everything that I'm going to say now about that, these are not my memories. These are what people have told me.
Okay.
So I really wasn't. I wasn't here. I just wanted to die. I didn't want to be in this world. I didn't see any way out of this world. And the more and more you think about it, and you can look at it retrospectively, what was it that made me feel like this? I don't know. I'd had a breakup with a relationship, but I thought I was in a good place. I'd just bought my first house.
Yeah.
I'd got a fantastic job. On the outside, it looked really positive, but obviously there was something that was causing me not to be well.
And I wonder, Sean, looking back on that, was there any warning signs that you didn't notice at the time?
Yeah, I think the warning signs that I would note if I saw somebody today in my job and what I do as well, is that the person will not be looking after themselves.
Okay.
There will be a different person. There's a thing we call it open door policy. So if you're in a business or you're working in an office, and just let's say we're in an office and we see everybody every day.
Yeah.
and you notice your office colleague is just not quite how he was last week, or she, but I'll say a he because not how he was last week.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, there's something not quite right here. There really is no time like that to go and talk and say, are you okay? And just that really, like I've just done that, you look them in the face, you look at them and you say, are you okay?
Wow.
I'm concerned. And you put it that way, and it's that, it's called proper listening. You know, it's that you full contact, just what I'm doing now with you, full contact, and I'm leaning in and I'm asking a question, but I'm listening, and there's no such thing as a bad pause. There's no, silence is good. So if you just ask that question, say, are you okay? And just wait. And that person will either say, I'm fine. And I think if I was concerned, I'd say, well, you're saying you're fine, but actually I'm not too sure. Is there something you want to talk? I mean, if we can go outside or we can go and have a chat in the office.
Yeah.
You know, you can give them an opportunity. But the fact that, again, like I'm doing, is just talking, leaning in and showing that I want to hear your story.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that it's something we're not good at as people, because we're such busy lives. We meet targets, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. But if you just look and that open door, you see somebody every day, and you're the person probably more than their spouses that you see them every day.
Yeah.
And there's a change. And it might be that they've got far too much work on and they've been hitting deadlines that they just can't achieve. Or it might be that they've got problems at home that you're not aware of. But that person is going through a really difficult time. And just to ask that question and to lean in and let them know that you're listening, it just works.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean, would it be okay for me to ask about how you were helped then?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mental health, I don't like to be pigeonholed, but I've been called like depression, clinical depression.
Okay.
There's been I've had times when I've had a bit of delusion and things like that. So I don't think there's a pigeonhole for anybody.
Yeah.
You know, we're all human, but we're all slightly different. But there is a big, pretty much that it is medical with me, that I do have a clinical depression. About 5 years previous to this, I had a bit of a swimming accident.
Okay.
I dove into a lake that I thought was quite deep, but it was very shallow, and I broke my neck.
Oh, wow.
And one of the theories is that I got away with that after being in a halo for a long, long time. But one of the theories is that may have caused the imbalance in my brain. So I don't produce serotonin or enough serotonin.
Yeah.
So medication is probably the number one thing to keep me well. If I stop my medication, just like a diabetic, I'm going to go into a depression and I'm going to end up suicidal.
Yeah.
It's just and sometimes, especially when like I was saying to you earlier, I've never been so well, and it's because they've messed about with medication, because I've been on a medication for about 5 or 6 years, and your body tolerates it and it doesn't work. And I was saying for a while it wasn't working, and I was dipping, but this new medication regime is really working, and as you can see, I'm in a really good place at the minute, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's for everybody. Medication, I've had CBT. They did try ECT on me, which didn't work for me. Or the only thing that I have a negative on that, a personal negative.
Sure.
I've seen some really good things. I've seen people who have not spoke or were totally moving about to being like just like ourselves within hours of having this. But for me, didn't work.
Okay.
And I would say that was medication and also therapy, talking. I think if one thing I could put across to every man out there is, we don't bloody talk enough.
Okay.
Simple as.
Yeah.
And when I say talk, not, "Hi mate, you all right, having a beer? Yeah, fine, fantastic. If you watch the football," it's saying, are you okay?
Yeah.
It is that voice. If you hear the change in the voice, are you okay?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you that, Sean, as to why do you think suicide affects so many men?
So many men. That's
Yeah.
that's a really good question. I think there is lots of experts out there
Okay.
who give loads of different reasons. I believe that we have that thing of the stiff upper lip, you know, and again, it's that ignorance of the general public, of people who have not had to deal with mental health.
Yeah, yeah.
Every person who's watching this now who has suffered or is suffering or is aware of mental health will get me, will understand exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The person who sat there, who's thankfully, and bless him or her, I'm going to say him, has never suffered, is thinking, this doesn't make an ounce of sense.
Yeah.
I haven't got a clue what he's saying. But you just look round that person to the three people of either side of you. One of them is smiling because he gets it.
Yeah.
He understands.
Yeah.
Have a chat with that man because he understands where we're coming from. Because it is, I do truly believe, and I say it with my first aid, mental health first aid, one of the things I have a great passion with, and especially with organisations and businesses. Every organisation in this country has physical first aiders at work.
Sure.
They have them. There is very, very few people who have even heard of mental health first aid.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Please. So it came from Australia originally, and it is about what I've just done about talking, about recognising somebody who has got mental health problems and being able to ask the questions, and not only ask the questions, but knowing exactly like physical first aid what to do. You're not the expert, you're not the counsellor, but you're going to have to deal with a crisis. Now it might be a crisis of somebody feeling really suicidal and in a very agitated state, and the last thing you want is people crowding around that person. So you need to take that person into a safe place. You also, again, would like you would do with physical first aid, make sure that you're safe. So you would let a colleague know that you're going to go in that room. You'd probably leave the door open, and you'd ask the colleague to bring a cup of tea.
Yeah.
But you would make sure somebody was watching you, because you've got to make sure you're safe as well as the other person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then it's about that tone. It's about that talking and asking the question. I have no fear of asking somebody, do you feel suicidal?
Yeah.
That person who we were just talking about earlier has never done, they say, you can't say that. How can you say that?
Yeah.
You can't say that to somebody. But actually, it's probably the best question you can ask.
Yeah.
Because that person will go, wow, they know. They see.
And Sean, this is something you do regularly. So you work for the YMCA.
I do, yeah.
You have a lot of experience actually with people who are in the process of suicide or who are suicidal.
I'm at the minute. I'm the coordinator for the night shelter. So I work with what we call the rough sleepers, homeless people.
Yeah.
And it is an actual fact that majority of homeless people will have some kind of mental health issue.
Yes.
Not all.
Okay.
Not all.
Yeah.
But some will.
Yeah.
They may be addicts of drugs and alcohol. Now, addiction is not a mental health issue. There is no mental health issue with addiction.
Okay.
But usually, if you just scratch the surface very, very shallowly, you will see that there is an issue that has caused that.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
It could be sexual abuse when they were kids.
Yeah.
It could be loss of a family member.
Yeah.
Bereavement is one of the most common things that causes people to experience mental health, ill health. That's another thing that we do with the first aid, mental health first aid. We've all got mental health, everybody.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of people have got mental good health. It's mental ill health that we need to tackle. We need to work with, and that is again a message from the mental health first aid that we all have got mental health.
Yeah.
You know, it really is as simple as that. You know.
Yeah.
I always say to people who are struggling and things, that there's only one person you can't get away from, because you can get away from the wife, go to the pub, you can get away from your colleagues, you can walk out, but you can't get away from that little mind in your head.
Yeah.
And that is the demon. That is the person that knows your deepest, darkest thoughts, knows exactly how much, in my own case, and I'm going to say this on camera, and it's something that I struggle with even today.
Yeah.
I actually hate myself.
Oh.
And I know that sounds quite thingy, but that I know that is my issue. That is my problem. But that's my little voice in my head is telling me that I'm useless and I'm not this and I'm not that. Now I fight that now and I work with it.
Yeah.
But on my low times, that voice gets really, really loud.
Heightened
really
up,
loud,
absolutely.
Really loud.
And you're absolutely spot on with that,
and it's not hearing voices. It's not.
Yeah.
Everybody just think you've always got that person inside your head who says, "Are you really going to do that? Are you going to have that?" You know, you do have a conversation with yourself, and if you don't, then I think you might have a few problems yourself.
How do you manage that then?
How do I manage that?
Yeah.
So, again, at the minute, I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
I'm doing really well. One of the things that's really, really helped me is, again, doing the mental health first aid, also doing this course that I'm doing, mental health awareness.
Okay.
And just reading and learning more about mental health.
Yeah.
That's what, as you can probably tell, like yourself, I have a passion for mental health. But I have a passion for mental health because, one, I've been a sufferer.
Yeah.
2, I'm a survivor.
Yes.
3, I live with it. And then I truly, truly believe, like we've had a conversation a few times, that we have a responsibility to tell our stories, to get rid of this stigma, this horrible stigma of mental health.
Do you think that's part of the problem, the stigma?
I truly do. I mean, a chap who's in business or a sportsman shows that they're weak, which is the wrong word. It's a horrible word.
Yeah.
That actually you're a very strong person if you're emotional.
Yes.
You know, if you've got emotions and you can let them show your emotions.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not a weakness. It's a strength. I truly but in this world, in the way that people are, it's seen as or perceived as a weakness.
Yeah.
And people think, I can't let my boss see that I can't cope with this unbelievable workload.
Yeah.
I've just got to crack on. I've got to do it. He's doing it over there, and he's doing it, but they're probably struggling as well.
Absolutely,
you know. And the sports thing. I mean, it's like 1 in 4 people have got mental health issues, and I thought to myself, well, how do you describe that? How do I describe that to somebody, a young lad, who's not really experienced any mental health?
Yeah.
And I just thought, and it came into my mind. I said, just look at a football pitch. 22 players on that football pitch. There's at least 7 of them suffering mental health issues.
Yeah.
You know, that is, I think, quite a strong image to show young people. It really is. 1 in 4. You can look around. I mean, if you're watching this with a few mates, if you're looking round, there's somebody suffering.
Yeah.
It might not be bad, but it could turn out bad.
Yeah.
I had a young lad last night, actually, in my night shelter, 23. He'd been to us the last 4 nights, and he came in last night, and he was in a real state, really in a bad way. He'd been at the local train station, contemplating throwing himself under the trains.
Yeah.
He had nobody. But because of how my volunteers and how we work and treat them as guests and talk and chat, and he felt he needed to go somewhere safe, and he came to us. Thank God, he came to us.
How did he know to come to you?
I think he again with mental health, when you're in that crisis, and I know this from, because I obviously I've had quite a few episodes of being suicidal.
Sure, yeah.
But when you're in that crisis, when you're in that deep hole where there's no light, you can't even see the light. Never mind look up and see, you can't see the light. There's no light. when you're in that crisis, probably the best thing, your brain says, look, you're struggling, you need help, where can you go? And there's always some way you can go.
Yeah.
Please
Yeah.
remember, even if it's like I did, ring the Samaritans.
Yeah.
One of the most amazing organisations. But the best one is probably your bestest mate.
Okay.
Your best buddy.
Yeah.
Because your best buddy knows you better than most. You know, so, and it is a difficult conversation. It is saying, look, I really do feel bad. I feel really suicidal.
Yeah.
And it's going to be emotional. And your friend is probably not going to be able to cope with what's the right thing to say, what's the wrong thing to say. But you as a sufferer needs to go somewhere where you feel that somebody's going to listen.
Yeah.
Feel safe.
Yeah.
Even and put you in a safe place. There is, like the young lad, he said, I spent a good hour with him and we was talking and we was chatting, and I found out what some of the issues were, and the simple thing I did for the young lad, I'm not saying it works for everybody, but we did an action plan. So we worked out his issues and we went through every single one, and we thought, right, what can we do? And some of the things I can't fix. Nobody can fix.
Yeah.
Some of the things I was able to give him a suggestion, and he thought, that's good, you know. So within the hour, he's still a very poorly man.
Yeah.
He's still struggling, but he wasn't suicidal.
Okay.
Okay. So I'd done a first aid job on him.
Yeah.
Exactly like I was saying. I haven't solved the problem. He's got a long road to go to get over this.
Yeah.
He's actually getting help today.
Yes.
Which is we made sure that he got to go to somewhere today who were professionals.
Yeah.
But in that hour, you know, in that I did exactly what I would do with a physical first aid.
Okay.
I patched him up and I shipped him off.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. We can't solve the problem, but we can stop the crisis.
Yeah. Sean, is there a place that people can find this mental health first aid?
Yeah, well, I know Derby YMCA have got courses, but if you Google mental health first aid courses, there is courses out there.
Okay.
There is adult and child mental health first aid. They're very similar. The only difference in the adult one is that the different places to go, and for example, there's PTSD. The army do mental health first aid, but they really do concentrate on the PTSD. So there's lots of different ones, but I do believe that every organisation should have a mental first aid. And one of the things as a mental first aider is, I'm not just there to be the talker and everything, but my job, and I truly believe my passion, like yourself, is to educate people.
Yes.
Teach people that there is no wrong words.
Yeah.
There is no wrong. There is no. You can't make things worse by talking to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my old grandma used to say, a good cup of tea and a chat sorts everything. And I think, you know, it's not far off the truth. It's a wise thing. It's a common sense thing. We need to talk. And us men, we don't talk. We talk, we chat about football, we'll have the crack and everything. But when it comes to these emotions, we're terrible.
What would you advise men then? So if you've guys watching this and they're struggling with their emotions and their feelings, what would you advise them?
I think GP first.
Okay.
Definitely go to your GP. If you're feeling really low, and I mean, and I think you'll know what I mean when I say really low, that it's just not lifting. It's just staying there. It just, no matter what you try and do, you just can't. If you're putting the brave face on at work, the happy Joe lucky lad, but when you go home, you're in floods of tears, or you're hitting the bottle, or things like that. You have a problem. You have an issue, and the only person who can help you is you. Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's that we don't recognise ourselves sometimes. We don't see it because
Yeah.
we're in the middle of that.
Yes,
We're in the middle.
yeah.
But sometimes you get a bit of clarity and you think this is wrong. You know that there's something wrong.
Yes.
And I think if it was physical, you go straight to your GP.
Yeah.
So why not if it's mental? Go straight to your GP.
Absolutely.
The first port of call. And then there's loads. There's self-help groups. There's if you're struggling socially, there's a lot of social groups.
Yes.
Not just pubs and clubs, but there's social
Yeah,
groups. There's
yeah.
places. There's organisations that you only have to look on this internet,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
You've just got so many different options in this day and age, but that internet is not the same as talking to your friends.
Sure, yeah.
Talking to to a human being,
Yeah.
making that eye contact, just like we're doing now, which is it is powerful. It really is. I mean, I know we're talking here, but it's so powerful.
Yes, it is.
To actually have a conversation and look somebody in the face and just say, "How are you doing?"
Yeah, and having somebody with you actually be present in the moment.
Absolutely.
And Sean, about that support, that, like, yes, we have so much about the lack of funding nowadays and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's just people.
We can all
we can help each other, can't
absolutely.
we? Yeah.
The best experts in this are people with mental health issues. They are the experts.
Well, I suppose they've been there.
They've been there, done it, had the T-shirt, and they're the experts. So if you are, I don't even want to use the word, but it's a survivor or somebody who's managing their own mental health, because I manage my mental health. I'm not cured, but I manage my mental health.
Yeah.
But if you and a couple of other people say, I tell you what, let's start a little group.
So, Sean, with the support, as you were saying there, about meeting like-minded people who have been through it themselves, and setting up a support group where you get to meet, as you say, like in your own home
or office at work. It doesn't. It's not. People think, support group, that's going to cause a load of paperwork and everything. No, it's 2 or 3 people having a chat. It's a room. You can put support group, mental health support group, just on the door, and just an hour of your dinner time. You can even have your sandwiches there. In fact, one of the greatest things is to invite people in, just buy a few sandwiches, and say, come and have a dinner with us, and let's have a chat.
It's giving
and
people
start that
time.
chat, giving people that time, giving people that, because nobody will talk to you the first time as they will do the 7th or 8th time, because we all have to make relationships. We all have to work to make that relationship. But if you use the very simple skills that I've just said, is open listening, talking in a nice, calm manner. That person who's absolutely agitated, as human beings, we mirror each other. So if I'm calm and I've got an agitated person and I stay calm, that person is going to come calm.
Yeah.
If I come agitated with that person, we're both going to be agitated because we're mirroring. But if we are talking to somebody who's agitated, if we stay calm and relaxed and talk in a really soft manner and listen. Sometimes, like this, like I said earlier, silence is really useful sometimes. It's really good just to have a bit of silence. It's not an awkward silence. It's a I'm still here. I'm still listening. You can be looking and listening, but the silence is sometimes golden. Really, really golden. So support through peers and support through, like you said, like-minded people. That it works. I mean, it's like I know a lot of football teams are now saying that they're dealing more with mental health. They're actually, I think some famous footballers have come out saying that they're suffering with the mental health, and clubs are saying that they're going to do this, and that's brilliant, and that's amazing. That's what's needed. But it needs to be from the grassroots. It needs to be from the local football team. It needs to come from the darts team. It needs to come from the office.
Yeah.
We as human beings are very selfish about ourselves, looking after ourselves, and sometimes we need to just open up and just go, I'm not sure if they're okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask that question. And it really isn't as scary as it sounds. Because people say, I can't just go and ask them. But there's a big thing. I love saying, good morning, hello to a stranger. I love it.
Yeah.
And I love the face. That person is like quite oh, yeah, good morning. You know, and you know you've left that person with something that they go, oh. So there really isn't a wrong time to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And to have a conversation. Probably, like I say, if it was in a crisis situation or they were really struggling, I would take them into a private place or into a safer place. But again, if I was concerned, I would ask the question.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Sean, thank you
Not
so
a problem.
much
It's been a pleasure. It's been lovely.
having the chat today, and
Great.
really appreciate your time, and just how amazing that for you being in such a dark place and for such a long time, actually, Sean. You've really been through it. And then to come out at the other side, and you know, and as you say, it's about managing and accepting, you know, that and to be honest, I don't think anybody's fixed, to be honest. I don't think.
No,
you know.
I think we said somebody who says they've got no mental health problems, I'd say, well, they probably got worse than anybody, to be fair. You know, so
that's another program.
Yeah, another program, absolutely.
But Sean, thank you so much.
No
I
problem.
really appreciate that.
Cheers.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 10, how did I help myself? In the past, I found writing poems helpful. I didn't understand my thoughts and feelings, but what I did know was after writing a poem, I felt better, a little lighter. When the depression took hold of me, I went to the doctor and he prescribed me antidepressants. I didn't want to take them, as I felt ashamed, but someone helped me to see it with perspective. He asked me, if I had a headache, would I take a tablet? And I said yes. And he said, well, what's the difference? I realised that pain was pain and I could stop judging myself about it. I then went into therapy to make sense of how I felt and why I felt that way. My counsellor really listened to me. I allowed myself to cry by listening to songs I could relate to. Alanis Morissette, sad songs. I cried so many times to her music. I also wrote my own songs to express my feelings. And I'm going to share one of my songs with you now. And I'm doing this because maybe if you can relate to it, you might just allow yourself to cry your heart out and let go of some of that emotional pain so it doesn't keep holding you back. Feeling so open, I just don't want to hurt again. Do I open out my arms, or do we stay friends? But if you see the real me, would I scare you away? I get insecure, so unsure, and I can change day by day. Is that okay? Is that okay? Is that okay? Is that okay? So listen, what do I do now? 'Cause I want to run. and I want to hide. If we seize the day, we'll be okay, we won't know if we don't try. But if you see the real me, will I scare you away? I get insecure, so unsure, and I can change day by day. Is that okay? 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 'Cause you don't see the real me, oh no. If you do see the real me, would you go? Thanks for listening. I went on to become a counsellor to help others as my counsellor helped me. I also wrote a book called The Power of Knowing You to help myself and others with similar experiences to make sense of the emotional pain. If you would like to know more about my story in the book, then please see the added links at the end of the show. I now perform mental health theatre shows where I combine comedy with mental health. I still have negative thoughts as part of living with depression. Not as bad as what I used to, as I've learned how to manage it, and it does not define who I am. When I have these thoughts, I now know I have a black cloud of depression hanging over me. I see it as depression talking and not me. I continue to write my thoughts down as a way to get them out. As I do this, I allow myself to cry or to get angry, whatever I need. The main thing is I know it will pass, and if it stays around, I book myself in for my own counselling session. Number 11. How can I help myself if I've lost someone by suicide? For people who are watching this program who have lost people through suicide, and my heart goes out to you, I encourage you to learn more about it. I encourage you to support each other in talking about it, to find a support group where you can offload your feelings. One of the groups I'm aware of is SOBS. I've been looking at the reading material and it really is fantastic. There'll be links at the end of the show about it. If there isn't a support group to suit you, then I encourage you to set one up and find like-minded, non-judgmental people where you can help each other to get through it. Again, there's a list of resources, so please feel free to have a look at those so you can get the help that you need too. Number 12, what can we as a society do to help? As a society, we have moved on, especially as mentioned earlier with the Suicide Act in 1961, where suicide was no longer seen as a crime. However, we still have a long way to go. There's so much we can do. We can look at our own behaviours about how we speak or don't speak about mental health and suicide. The silence is a massive part of the problem. With a recent case of suicide, a cousin of the person who died commented, "We didn't know there was anything wrong. Why didn't he speak to us?" I asked the person, in looking at the people around him, were they open to talk about feelings and struggles? And her answer was no. That can give the outward message that we don't talk about that sort of thing. This can encourage people to continue to bottle things up and hence becomes part of the problem. One of the reasons why I wanted to produce this show about suicide is because if someone is murdered, an inquest is done. But if someone dies by suicide, there is a coroner's inquest generally, but the cause of the suicide act cannot be definitively decided. Then most times it's brushed under the carpet and never spoken about. We need to break the silence and explore why people are dying by suicide so it doesn't keep happening. As a society today, we can look at our attitudes and beliefs towards showing and talking about emotions. For some people, they have learned and been conditioned not to talk about their feelings. Saying things like pull yourself together and keep a stiff upper lip are all part of that conditioning. Showing emotion in the past was seen as a weakness, when actually it takes great strength to be comfortable with your own vulnerability. We can learn that telling someone to don't cry or just snap out of it is not helpful. We can learn to say things like, do cry, let it out, take as much time as you need. We can get through this together. We can model behaviours that talk about feelings and emotions. I've heard people say, oh, we don't talk about the pink fluffy stuff. Well, choosing not to talk about feelings is killing people, and that's the reality. Sorry folks, I'm just so passionate about this. I spent the last 10 years working as a counsellor and I see the detrimental effect. Is this what we want for our future children, to feel worthless and not heard? You know something, I talk about that vulnerability. I had, it was recently, I was upset about something and a person turned around to me and said to me, you're not crying, are you? I thought you were stronger than that. And I said to them, do you see this? I said, this is what makes me strong, because I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, and I'm not, folks. And you know what? I'm really sick of hearing people say, you know, after somebody's died by suicide, oh, they were the life and soul of the party. We didn't know anything. Come on, folks. Surely we got to be asking ourselves, why is that happening? Why did that person feel like that they couldn't speak to their own family, their own friends? What are we doing as a society that's preventing people in talking about their feelings and being vulnerable? I had a client who was happy for me to share this, who says to her children at the end of the day, tell me a time when you felt sad today, or can you tell me a time when you felt angry, or a time when you felt happy? This is an example of normalising talking about emotions. For years, people have been carrying anger as their main way to communicate, when behind anger is sadness, fear, loss, hurt or pain. We can be open-minded and ready to learn about why people get to the point where they have suicidal thoughts. Be open to talk about it. The fact that you're watching this video means that you are taking action and being open-minded. Thank you. Whether you are the person suffering or want to help someone who is, or both or neither, well done in watching this and taking action. We can stop saying that people commit suicide, as the word commit makes it sound like that they have committed a crime. We can change this by changing the language we use, by saying somebody survived an attempt or died by suicide. What we can also do is stop blaming and judging someone for taking their own life and understand why it happened. What if that person died by suicide as a result of a crime, like being in an abusive relationship that led to their suicide? What if the people within that relationship did not know they were being abusive? This happens. We need to learn from the past, not sweep it under the carpet. Not to blame someone, but to understand the different circumstances to why this is happening and what we can do differently. We can show compassion for each other. We can understand that most people come from good intentions and may not have learned how to talk about emotions. As a counsellor, I've learned that most people want to show emotional love, but sometimes they don't know how to. Folks, it takes practice like everything else if you're not used to doing it. But you can learn how to do it. The fact is that most people at some stage in their life will struggle with their mental health, and that's normal. And you know what we can do? We can let go of this pressure that we have to pretend to be happy all the time, because this is not realistic. Think about it, folks. A typical conversation tends to go like this: how are you? And the person goes, I'm fine, with a smile. And then they go back, and how are you? And then the person replies, I'm fine, with another big smile again. And sometimes we say we're fine and happy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When someone says to me, how are you? I say, I'm shite. That's if I'm having a bad day. But you know what happens? The other person will say, do you know what? I'm a bit shite too. And you know what we do? We have a laugh. We get over it. We let go of that pressure to be happy all the time. Look, folks, as human beings, we are all the same. We have the capacity to learn, and together we can break the stigma and save lives. As I mentioned earlier on at the start, if you've experienced something helpful that may be of help to others, then please share it in the comments, and let's continue to help each other. Thank you so much for watching this.